going on, FA Nation? Welcome to the Fantasy Alarm DFS NBA live stream. I'm John Pemba. As always, James Grande here, previewing the 10-game DFS NBA main slate, or 11? 10 or 11? 11 games.
Yep, 11.
Yep, they didn't cut one off today, so that's a plus. But still, a lot of action, a lot of injury news coming out. Guys in, guys out. Guys may be out, but if they are in, they're going to start. So, James, why don't you break it down for us? Go over totals, go over injuries. Let's figure out where we're heading tonight.
All right, so we got a lot of injury news, so just bear with me for a second. We know Al Horford, Jaylen Brown already ruled out. Joe Harris, a little before we came on air, officially ruled out. Otto Porter is also has been ruled out, and his replacement will be Jeff Green, who is also questionable, but will start if he plays. So that's kind of pretty sloppy of the Wizards, but that's kind of what we'd expect from the Wizards right now with the way that everything's going with them. Dennis Smith Jr. is probable. Big news, and Marc Gasol is questionable. Chris Paul is still questionable. Gary Harris is still questionable. Aaron Gordon is going to be a game-time decision, as well as Jonathan Simmons from that same game. Jeremy Lin has been ruled out. TJ Warren has been ruled out, and Josh Jackson has already been announced the starter in his place. Yeah. George Hill is out. Kyle Korver is available to make his debut, and as is Alec Burks. Joakim Noah is not, by the way, who was signed by Memphis today, not available to make his debut. Some Vegas totals, really ugly. It's getting really ugly in Cleveland, Boston. It's down to 206.5, and the spread remained at 13. Memphis, Brooklyn, ugly as well. Both those games are the only two under 210. And then we're looking at Dallas Lakers 223.5, Atlanta Oklahoma City up to 228.5, still 13-point spread, so that's still pretty scary. 229 in New Orleans, Miami, only a 3-point spread. New Orleans actually favored on the road there. That's going to probably be a very chalky game, especially for cash. And 233 in Washington, Philly. The line has moved from 7.5 to 8.5 since the Otto Porter news. So we got some big spreads. We have some really ugly ones, and then we just have like 5 or 6 games in the teens. Houston, San Antonio, we didn't have a spread last night on the podcast, is 217. So that's
not bad.
And only a 1-point spread. So it doesn't really give us an idea if Chris Paul is going to play or not. I think the other day we were like, it shifted like 4 points, and we were able to basically predict like Chris Paul not playing, but no luck today.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, we won't know that till 8 o'clock. So DraftKings, you can still maneuver your lineups. FanDuel, you might just have to bite the bullet and play James Harden. What a crime that will be.
Marc Gasol will play, by the way.
Marc Gasol playing. Love that. I wrote in the playbook today that he's probably my favorite center overall on the slate because we love centers versus the Nets. Rudy Gobert the other day had a 60-point fantasy game against him. Pretty much everybody has ceiling games against the Nets. We saw him go for 64 FanDuel points against the Knicks a couple of games ago. He fills up the stat sheet. So Gasol, I put in the playbook, could have a 60 or 70-point ceiling tonight if the Nets and Grizzlies kind of keep this one close. So if he's playing, he went through practice yesterday, so that's a good sign for that foot that he's dealing with. I like him as my top center. But yeah, let's jump it down. Let's start at point guard. We mentioned on the podcast that Gasol playing actually helps Mike Conley. Mike Conley was also one of my favorite point guards on this slate. I felt that he goes, not sort of overlooked, but I think, again, as I keep on writing, I feel like people sort of forgot how good he was because of the injuries of the last few seasons. But, here we are now, of the last 5 games, 4 of them over 47 fantasy points. One of them was in 54 on FanDuel. So here, against a matchup against the Nets, who are really struggling to defend point guards, Mike Conley, I think for his price tag, is one of the top point guard plays for me.
Speaking of point guards, Chris Paul expected to play.
Yep. So shift all your Eric Gordon shares out. I still think Harden's okay, but if you have Eric Gordon in the lineup, probably shift him down.
Agreed. I don't think we can pay that price tag for Eric Gordon. I think he still should play like decent minutes, but the usage will drop. Yeah. I think you're spot on with your analysis of Conley, but like there was a reason why at one point before everyone started getting big contracts that he had the biggest contract in NBA history. They gave him that contract because they wanted him to be their franchise player until all the injuries and whatnot. But you're right. I mean, everything points to him being great. And you mentioned it on the playbook. I mean, 54, 39, 49, 34 over his last 5 games. So the ceiling is there and the floor is there. So like perfect mesh of ceiling, floor for cash, and perfect for tournaments as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Russell Westbrook obviously is the top price point guard here against Atlanta, a terrible defensive team. The question is whether or not this game stays close enough for Westbrook to get his fantasy points. Now, we've seen when like elite Russell Westbrook's at his best, he only needs 3 quarters to go for a triple-double anyways. Does his price tag and the matchup scare you off him at all? We have him projected as a top cash game or top ownership percentage guy. How do you feel about that tonight?
I mean, I think it's like our ownership's obviously geared towards tournaments. So that's kind of where I would play him because the potential blowout, is Atlanta is not keeping it close with many teams. So I'm only playing him in tournaments. The spot is phenomenal though. Like I wouldn't if you're building like 10 lineups and let's say half of them are GPP, half of them are cash. Like I would probably say 3 of the 5 GPP I'd want Westbrook, especially now knowing that Chris Paul is expected to play like that.
Right.
Because that hinder Harden slightly. So now you can pivot to Westbrook. I bet you that ownership actually checks in a little low now that we know that Chris Paul's playing.
Yeah, that's probably true too. Any interest in Paul playing against San Antonio here?
No. Too slow of a pace. We didn't really see it like a price deduction, and I don't know what the upside is. And it's a big slate where I'd rather pay like $8K for other guards than him. Yeah,
that's fair. I'm not going to argue too much with you to that front. Going further down, obviously I'm a big Dame Lillard guy. I like him at home. This matchup against Denver should be good. Jamal Murray, not the greatest of defenders. Does actually have a decent defensive rating this season, but I mean, I don't know if I can trust that or not. So for me, I'm still going to go with Lillard. But the opposite side of that matchup, last year Jamal Murray had a season high 38 points against Portland. I like him in GPPs. He's a really nice price tag at $7,000 on FanDuel. I think if you're going mid-tier at point guard, Jamal Murray is probably where I'm looking.
I mean, we know he has the quote pop off upside, and if he's only going to be projected at 3%, that can win you a tournament. Especially if that game can stay close. I mean, we've seen Portland just kind of giving up a ton of points too. I mean, they gave up 115 to or 112 to a Orlando team without one of their best scorers the other night. So it's not like they're in peak defensive form right now. So. I do like Jamal Murray for tournaments, and I love the ownership on him, especially if he has one of those patent. You got it. I'm struggling words. Words are not happening today. But one of those games, the word I tried to say.
Yeah, I got you. I like it. I agree with you there. Going further down, I think Reggie Jackson's in a really good spot. I like him in cash games today against Chicago. 3 straight games now, 37, 38, and 34 fantasy points on FanDuel. For me, I think this is a good spot and what should be, I would say, a competitive game. These two teams played a close, high-scoring game the first time out. What do you think on Jackson at 6,400? Do you like anybody else on FanDuel, rather? Anybody else in this range? Anybody below him?
So I don't dispute that Jackson's good cash game play, but I think I would rather go elsewhere, especially just knowing what's available on DraftKings to me, at least, when we go down to the value tier. So, I mean, yeah, it would be a low-owned cash game play, and if he gets you the 35, that's obviously a nice game at his price tag. But, like, what happens if, like, Elie Kobo goes for 30 or Ryan Archidakano goes for 30 at their price tag? So, like, it's kind of...
Yeah.
You know, again, I don't hate it, but you know, do we fade? But I do understand you're also talking FanDuel pricing, so that's different. I think JJ Barea is a tournament guy. Lakers are not defending point guards well, and his whatever he's doing in the limited time that he's playing is insane. 13 and 12 in 18 minutes his last time on the floor, and he's gone for 30 in 3 straight games. So I think we got to consider him in this mid tier. Going down, I'm just having a hard time going through the mid tier I just want to drop, I just want to go down to value.
I hear you. Especially on DraftKings, like you said, where Kobo's still $3,000.
Right, that's
crazy. What, 4,200? On DraftKings, on FanDuel, they got the immediate bump. They're both 4,400.
Right.
The question I asked you right before we jumped on air is do you have to play both of them on FanDuel? Do you just have to, because they're so cheap? The minutes are probably going to be there like they were the other day. I don't love that Kobo's not starting, and the fact that they were on the second night of a back-to-back. But also, TJ Warren's out, Josh Jackson's in the lineup, so their depth is maybe a little bit lesser than it could have been before. So the minutes are probably still there for Kobo because Booker can move up and down that lineup. He's starting at point guard, but can play shooting guard, can play small forward. We think Frazier's starting. We haven't seen a starting lineup yet for the Pelicans, right? Has that been announced that he's starting?
No, we have not. No, we have not.
So again, that's something we have to worry a little bit about, I think, just because again, that's an 8:00 start. You put Frazier in your lineups, then if he doesn't start, does he even play? Because before the other night, as you pointed out, he had played 6 total minutes this month. So, maybe that was just a matchup play last time to get Tim Frazier in there. He certainly doesn't deserve to go back to the bench. He had a double-double, 4 rebounds off a triple-double. And we know that he's been a competent point guard in the past. So, but yeah, are you forced to play these two guys because their value on FanDuel, especially to fit in, the stars and scrubs lineup?
My dogs think so.
Does Zeus think so?
Zeus does think so. I mean, again, it's just something that we're going to have to do, especially on FanDuel, because if one of them doesn't do well, we're dropping their score regardless. So I think on FanDuel, they're kind of forcing you to. I mean, I think you can probably play them both on DraftKings too, to be honest. 4.2 and 3K.
$3,000?
Right. Yeah, right. No, that's a free square. No, it's a free square. You're absolutely right. They don't have any depth. They have 0 depth at the guard position. They have Jamal Crawford, who we kind of know isn't going to play more than 22, 23 minutes.
I think 25 is his cap. I think 25 is probably going to be his cap.
Probably with Isaiah Cannon, right. With Isaiah Cannon gone.
Out, I can see possibly Crawford playing a little bit more minutes, but again, yeah. I have a better GPP player coming up when we talk about power forward for Phoenix. Okay. With these guys ruled out, so we'll touch upon that afterwards, but I think Crawford's probably a guy that's going to play that. So I agree with you. But $3,000 for Kobo after going for 30 last game, no price bump at all. They had plenty of time to bump him. They didn't do it. So DraftKings, if he's not 60% ownership, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be, especially the way that FanDuel cash games are trending, he's going to be over 60. And DraftKings too. He's free square. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with you perfectly. Moving on to shooting guard, as we mentioned, James Harden. Chris Paul news hits him a little bit because we wrote about, with Paul, out of the lineup, Harden had, what was it, a 45% usage rate, averaged 1.8 fantasy points per minute, something absolutely insane. I'm going to pull up his usage numbers right now. I don't know if you have them with Paul in the lineup. If not, I got them right in front of me. This year, Paul in the lineup. I mean, Harden's still dominating. He's at 40% still. Drops to 1.5 fantasy points per minute. So, big decline there, I guess. But so Harden for me is still in play. But obviously, we've seen his ceiling with Paul in the lineup. Not nearly. He doesn't go for 80 with Paul in the lineup. We haven't really seen that. We've seen more consistent, upper 40s to 50s because he doesn't have the ball in his hands as much. Does he I think maybe he becomes more of a contrarian play because I think people will see that Paul is playing and now get off of Harden. I think that'll shift ownership to maybe Anthony Davis more than we'll see. But what's your take on Harden? Is he still a guy in play for you?
He's very expensive. So I think when you ask if he's in play, sure, I think he's in play. But he's obviously not as cash game of a cash game lock as he was. And even for tournaments, he's the most expensive player on the slate. he doesn't have this type of upside with Chris Paul, or at least he hasn't flashed it as much as he did without him.
Right.
So, I think he's in play for tournaments, but cash games at 11-7, especially on draft, it really hurts your builds over there now that Chris Paul could take, some of the usage, some of the shot, all of it. So, I think he's fine for tournaments. I would just stay clear of him in cash games as of right now.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just looking through some game logs over on FanDuel. He did have a couple 55. One game was at 2 games. He's at 58 and 59 with Paul playing, but that's not 70. That's not 80 like we've been seeing. So on a whole, I definitely agree with you. But there's still not many people with his ceiling.
Right.
Moving on down, or even his floor level actually. Moving on down again, as we talked about in the podcast, but on FanDuel is this chunk of shooting guards where we have Drew Holiday, Zach LaVine, Brad Beal, DeMar DeRozan, Devin Booker, Jimmy Butler, Donovan Mitchell. They're all in the 8K range. Holiday's at 8,900, Mitchell's at 8,000 to close that off. I really like Zach LaVine here against Detroit. I like that we're seeing him contribute more in the secondary stats like rebounds, assists, and steals. He had 33 actual points in the first meeting here against Detroit. This is something that you and I were using religiously in our lineups at the beginning of the year because the price tag was had him in the sevens or whatever. Now he's $8,700. Not as high as we've seen him, but still pretty high. But I like him a lot here, and I like Devin Booker, as we call him, Point Booker. Now that he's starting a point guard. Usage rate, fantasy points per minute are right up there for me. If I'm not going Harden, if I'm looking to sort of still spend up, those are the 2 guys I'm starting with.
Who would you play in cash games, and who would you play in tournament, or would you play in both in both formats?
LaVine for me, I think, is more GPP because I like the matchup against Orlando better for Booker. So I think I would trust Booker more in cash games than LaVine. If for whatever reason all of a sudden Blake Griffin and Drummond just go ham, this game gets out of hand, then maybe LaVine. Not that we've seen it, not that we've seen minute restrictions on him, even in blowouts, but maybe he doesn't go off for as much as he does. Maybe he doesn't get the secondary stats like we see because he can't get on the glass. Okay. So for me, I think Booker has a wide open lane here against Orlando. He's also cheaper. I like that in cash games. Allows you to sort of spend elsewhere as well. So Booker in cash, very much in playing GPPs though. I'm not telling you don't play him there either.
Right.
But LaVine for me is more cash game more GPP only for me.
Okay. And I would throw Drew Holiday into that mix as well for cash games. He just has a really safe floor, and Miami has not been defending the guard position well, and he's going to get a matchup with Wayne Ellington or Dwayne Wade or whatever combination of those 2 that they throw at him, and I don't think either of them stand much of a chance.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Moving on down into sort of that mid-tier range, we talked about Eric Gordon. Probably can't go there now that Paul's going to come back and play. You mentioned Dennis Schroeder revenge game. Last 3 games haven't been great for him fantasy production wise. The price tag at least is finally starting to come back down. He's at $6K on FanDuel. Are you going there? Are you still worried about a blowout? Do you think he plays in a blowout?
I mean, if you look at the last, the last 4 games that the Thunder have won by 18 points or more, Schroeder has played 30 or more minutes. Mm-hmm. So I think he gets the blowout minutes, and this is a guy, I keep calling him a mini Westbrook. He's going to get in, and he's going to crush his old team if this becomes a blowout. I mean, he might be very productive even if it's a close game too, So I do like this price tag on Dennis Schroeder a lot for tournaments. How about just one more guy? He's point guard, shooting guard eligible, Spencer Dinwiddie. So with Joe Harris ruled out and Karis LeVert off the floor, Dinwiddie has a 31% usage rate and averages 1.26 fantasy points per minute in a pretty big sample as well.
He's a guy that you and I are always big on too. So
I think there's an uptick in minutes and a path for him in tournaments as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you too much there. You mentioned Jonathan Simmons potentially questionable, Aaron Gordon questionable. That will put Terrence Ross.
Give it to me, yes.
For me, GBPs only. I know you like to sometimes flirt with them probably in cash if those 2 guys would be ruled out. But for me, he's a firm GPP play. $5,000 on FanDuel is a very nice price tag. 27, 37, 32 fantasy points the last 3 games over on FanDuel. 28, 27, 26 minutes. So the minutes are there. Those 2 guys get ruled out. I think I saw earlier Ross had over a fantasy point per minute or approaches a fantasy point per minute when Gordon and Simmons were off the floor this year. So the usage rate, I think, sat around like 25 or so percent. Yeah, 25%, 1.02 DraftKings points per minute, Ross, when Gordon and Simmons are off the floor. So real good number for him if he's going to play 30-plus minutes tonight.
Lock and load if they both sit in tournaments. I got nothing else to say. You guys know I've been touting this guy for how long? The upside is tremendous, you know. So lock and load if they don't play, or even if one of them don't play, lock and load, because he's still going to see a large lump of minutes.
Yep. Marcus Smart, somebody we project to be very chalky tonight, given our ownership projections. He's starting again with Jaylen Brown out. Al Horford's also out, so another guy that sort of handles the ball for the Celtics, and that often somewhat runs through. Kyrie Irving made it a point to say that he enjoys when Marcus Smart's on the floor. Smart's playing literally all of the minutes that he can handle right now as well. 39 minutes last game as the starters. His first game of starting lineup, 39 minutes. I think that happens here again, assuming a blow doesn't occur. But still, I think he's very safe. The 25-ish point range. He has a higher ceiling if he gets more than the one steal, one block like he had last time. Marcus Smart, $4,500 on FanDuel. Someone I think you can play in cash games today.
Yeah, all formats. Only 4.3K. It seems like he's just, anytime he gets 30 minutes, it's just he will just get you like the 20. He'll get you where you need to be. So I just like him in all formats as well.
That's fine. Last guy I'll throw out there, obviously we talked about him a little bit before, is Jamal Crawford. I think he probably plays around 25 minutes tonight. So 20 to 25 minutes. And the last 4 games, the production's been there. It was a back-to-back when he played against the Clippers. He only played 16 minutes, but you look at the 4 games before that where he played over 20 minutes, 26, 17, 21, 22 fantasy points. For him, 3.7K. Might think he's a little bit cheaper on DraftKings. I think he's another guy you can go to as a value option.
And like you mentioned, TJ Warren out. They don't really have the depth, so he should essentially see more minutes. So he's fine in tournament.
Yep. Small forward, we talked about on the podcast for yesterday's slate how we weren't really on LeBron because he wasn't taking a ton of shots. Well, he hurt us, obviously. He took all of the shots for the Lakers, and he put up 60 fantasy points. I don't know if anybody's on him in this game here against Dallas on a back-to-back. How do you feel about LeBron? Is he making any of your lineups tonight?
It's funny to hear what Magic Johnson had to say today about limiting LeBron's usage going forward because he doesn't want this to turn into another Cleveland situation. And apparently LeBron is already not listening to Luke Walton's plays and calling plays himself. I think LeBron is very stubborn like that, and I think this is going to be another game where he basically, says, "All right, we'll see about limiting usage here," and we see a similar game to what we saw last night. I think it's going to be another big game for LeBron, just based on what we heard. Like I think he is someone, grudge. I don't know if that's considered like having a grudge against someone or like, just hearing those words said, like, all right, I hear what you're saying, but let's see what happens on the court type of thing. Yeah. So I think for just that sole purpose, like LeBron has shot up my board, like, and now that Harden's, with Chris Paul, like LeBron up, Harden down for me.
Yeah, I like it. Nikola Mirotic is someone that we have projected to be very highly owned tonight in tournaments. $8,000 for him. Josh Richardson, 79. Jabari Parker, 73. I put in the playbook today. Jabari Parker averaged over 20 points a game for the Bucks a couple seasons ago. Obviously, he got injured and things sort of kind of fell out of favor there with Milwaukee. But now he's sort of back and healthy and producing like he was before. He's got 420 actual scoring point games over the last 5 contests. He's gone for 50, 39, 44, 38, 38 on FanDuel during that 5-game stretch here against Detroit. How do you feel about Jabari Parker tonight?
I mean, this is like the best stretch of basketball he's ever played. This is even like better than what you said he was averaging in Milwaukee. He's just doing it all because he's contributing across the board. He's always been someone who we knew could score. He was drafted because he could score the basketball. He's contributing on the glass. He's even contributing kind of in defensively in the passing lanes too. I mean, just minus his last game, he had a steal or more in 5 straight games. So the peripherals are there. I think he's an elite tournament play, especially considering that this game has less than a 10-point spread and the Bulls are keeping games close as a whole. But Richardson and Mirotic I think, are very nice cash game plays that I don't know. Mirotic is going to be heavily owned, but again, I don't know if Josh Richardson is going to be heavily owned, and I think that's a really interesting route to go because we know he gets all the usage with Dragic off the floor.
Right. No, I agree with you there. Going a little bit further down, I mentioned Kyle Anderson. Selling that is just consistent. Again, I don't really love him, and his price tag on DraftKings is more appealing to me. FanDuel is $5,800, but he's going to get you 25 to 30 fantasy points. Doesn't have much more of a ceiling than the 30. Maybe he gets 33. But for me, I think that's good for cash games. I think he's safe. Price tag not the worst. No issue going there.
How many Grizzlies would you play in cash tonight?
Probably 3. Probably 3. I think him, Gasol, and Conley are in there. Jackson obviously is interesting. But I think I like with Gasol more, him in the lineup. And then JaMychal Green, I would have liked if Gasol was out of the lineup.
Right.
So,
I
think it's those 3.
Okay, I agree. I just wanted to see if JaMychal piqued your interest at all. Not.
It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I do like me some JaMychal Green for sure. But he's more. I think he's more GBPs for me with Gasol.
Yeah, with Gasol in. Right.
Oubre and Jeff Green are the 2 guys I think are going to be highly owned. Oubre for sure because we know he's playing and know he's starting. I think, right? He's starting. Yeah, he's going to start.
I mean, he's been starting for the last couple of games, so I can't imagine with Otto Porter magically out that he's just like, know what?
I was trying to figure out the rotation there because if it's Wall, Beal, and Porter is out, so they said Jeff Green would start, and then Markieff starts and Thomas Bryant starts. So are they going to have Jeff Green start over Oubre and have Oubre come off the bench here? Are they going to not start Thomas Bryant and start the game small? Because then I love Embiid even more than I do already.
Well, Markieff's been coming off the bench.
Markieff's been the one coming off the bench.
So they've been running Otto Porter at the 4 or Oubre, whichever one. Sense to me then. And they're going to – and I think it's making sense because Markieff has been great coming off the bench as that primary 6th man, getting face the second unit. So, so it's going to be Jeff Green starting at power forward if he does, in fact.
All right, well, then I like that. That makes sense to me. So Oubre and Jeff Green, if he plays, they said he's going to start. Still don't have an update on that. Hopefully we will soon. That game is 7 o'clock game, so we'll know that before roster lock, thankfully. But for me, both of those guys very much in play here against Philadelphia. I kind of like Trevor Ariza as well in GPPs, but no TJ Warren. I know Josh Jackson has some usage with Warren off the floor, but I also feel like with Booker as a point guard, that also creates opportunities for other guys outside of Booker, and I think that we may see Ariza benefit from that. So I have some interest in Ariza, probably more on DraftKings and FanDuel, because FanDuel is $5,000, but still,
right.
I think he's an interesting GPP play.
We are naming so many Suns. It hurts.
It's a good matchup. Orlando's not a good team.
I know.
We can throw a Magic out there too and go with Jonathan Isaac.
Okay.
Something as well. Let's jump to power forward. We are quickly running out of time here because we just talk forever about point guards like we always do. Anthony Davis, right? Lock and load. I looked at one of the games last year against Miami. It was just a humongous just slaughter, and that was with Whiteside playing full minutes too. So it's not like that matchup really hindered him at all. That was after the DeMarcus Cousins injury where it was just an Anthony Davis team. So big ups on Davis there, especially with the Chris Paul news. I think you'll see a lot of ownership that maybe weren't on Harden on Davis before, probably go to Davis now. Blake Griffin had a double-double, 33 and 12 against Chicago that first game. I see no reason that can't happen again. Great matchup. He's going to have Jabari Parker defense, which he can easily take advantage of as well. So big fan of his. If we go a little bit further down in that next range, Tatum and Markieff, how do you feel about those two?
I think Tatum and the Morris brothers are all really quality plays. I prefer Tatum in tournaments.
Okay.
And then I would play both. I would consider both Morris brothers cash viable. Just knowing what Markeith's doing off the bench, I know this spread's a little scary, but they don't have depth. They're gonna need him to play minutes regardless. And Marcus, we know is a fantasy point per minute monster right now, and I'm not necessarily worried about that matchup against Larry Nance. So, who also I think is in play. Larry Nance is also in play.
Yeah.
That power forward tier is interesting for sure in cash.
As I alluded to earlier, we'll talk about some more Phoenix Suns players. Richaun Holmes has been a guy that I've been on now for a couple games at least. He's not playing more than 17 minutes, really. Last 5 games, 15, 17, 15, 17, 17. In those 5 games, though, fantasy production, 34, 22, 25, 24, 27. Can't really play him on FanDuel. You can, but he's $5,100. You do get the extra bonus point for blocks, and that's where he's really making his hay. If you look at the numbers, 2 blocks, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 2 blocks, 2 blocks. So all over the blocks there. But then Josh Jackson's $4,000 on FanDuel. He's going to be popular starting for TJ Warren. Like them both on FanDuel, like them both better on DraftKings. So definitely in play. Any other value, power forwards for you, or move on to center?
Move on to center.
Alrighty, Joel Embiid, like I said, Thomas Bryant plays 15 minutes, and then they go small. We've seen centers take advantage of this situation. I think Embiid is going to do whatever he wants in this matchup. I think this game could even say a little bit competitive, too, because, the Wizards do have scorers on their side. So love Embiid. Gasol is my favorite play against the Nets. We talk about it all the time. You play centers against the Nets, play centers against the Nets, play centers against the Nets. If you're making one lineup and it doesn't include the center versus the Nets, make a second lineup.
You didn't even say it enough. You haven't said it enough either. Like, honestly, you haven't said it enough.
The other thing we say is if for whatever reason you decide not to play a center against the Nets, play a center against the Suns. And Nikola Vucevic, who's maybe the second best center right now in the NBA, he draws the Suns. You can play him. He's been crushing. Handful of 50-point games over the last 5. Had a 70-pointer against the Lakers. I mean, absolutely smashes at the top of this center's spot. Paying up for center is the way to go if you want that top-end production. If we're going down to mid-tier, Tristan Thompson against the Celtics, always in play. Justin Fensterman had DeAndre Jordan in the starting 5 video today. The rebound should be there for him. If you can get some lobs, I like that a lot. Mason Plumlee, not going to play more than 21 minutes like he's done the last 20 minutes, last 3 games. But, those 3 games, 46, 32, 28. Like him much more, obviously, on FanDuel. DraftKings on FanDuel, 6,100. Can't pay that for him, in my opinion. And then we have the 2 value centers, Aaron Baines, starting tonight for Al Horford, and Sideshow Bob, as I like to call him, Robin Lopez. He actually played 25 minutes in the first meeting against Detroit. They need the bigger body. He's played over 20 minutes in 3 of the last 4 games. Wendell Carter Jr., I think we'd get in foul trouble with me and you out there playing against him. I think you'll see a lot of Robin Lopez in this game as well. That was my quick rant on center. So where are you looking?
I agree with everyone you just said, and I would throw in Cody Zeller as another value play. I know generally we don't attack Utah at the center position, but they rank 21st against centers this year. So Zeller's still just 4.3K on DraftKings. We know he's going to play like 20 to like 28 minutes, and he's a fantasy point per minute guy. So just another value. But everyone else you mentioned, spot on with your analysis.
Perfect. James and I will be in subscriber chat up until 7 o'clock for you guys, answering any questions, updating you on any injury news, or waiting, obviously, on the news regarding Jeff Green, which is going to float some lineups, I think, because he's so cheap. But we'll catch you guys later, and next live stream Monday, I believe.
Yep.
Catch you Monday.
Later, guys.